In this video I will tell you how I learned English and passed the Ielts on B2 level in just 1 month of preparation. I'm not going to teach you English here, but I will tell you a lot of useful things that will help you to understand this exam better and optimize the preparation process, make it more efficient. I did not go to any IELTS schools or courses, but I would really like to, because there are some parts of this exam that are especially hard to prepare for alone. And in the company of like-minded people, especially under the guidance of a competent teacher, it is much more effective to prepare. The only problem that can arise with such courses is the shifting of responsibility. You saw an ad, preparation for IELTS in 3 months, you paid money for the school, and now you think that C2 is in your pocket. It is not. You will still need to prepare both as part of the course you paid and on your own. But as you can see from my experience, and I think I am not alone, it is quite realistic to get a good score by your own. To clarify some points, I was preparing for IELTS for 1 month, but before that I had been recording YouTube videos in English language for about 3 years, and 7 of my 11 years of school were spent in a language gymnasium. But if you ask me if that was a weighting factor in doing quite well on IELTS, I would say definitely not. 11 years of school and then 3 years of university is nothing compared to my experience of speaking on camera in terms of learning English. By the way, here in Russia you will not find anyone who can speak English well after 11 years of school. We've had 11 years of nonsense. It all comes down to learning text and endlessly studying grammar with zero real speaking experience. But for example, in Europe this system is much more effective. The children after elementary school can ask you where they can find a tennis racket because their sister is somewhere on another court and she can't help with it. As you understand, this is a real case. 5 years Albanian girl come to me and release this speech after saying that her English was not so good. And well, my 3 years of talking in English on camera is also nothing compared to focused preparation for IELTS. Because with IELTS you don't need to be a guru in English to pass it with a decent score. You just need to be a guru in IELTS, be able to solve typical tasks, use your exam time efficiently and set priorities correctly if you don't have enough of this time, and so on. Therefore, if you had at least mark B in English or 4 out of 5 or just good, depends on your system at school, you definitely have the necessary base. Go and just learn how to solve IELTS tests. In our country there is a unified state exam after school based on the results of which you can go to university. It is conducted in many subjects, but passing it always comes down to solving tests with standard tasks. Yes, sometimes they are really difficult, yes, maybe with multiple choice answers, yes, sometimes it is a text that needs to be written, but it is always an identical structure, the same evaluation criteria, and a standard answer. And then I quickly realized that in order to successfully pass this exam, I must first of all not study chemistry or biology from books, but simply solve a huge number of these tests so that I could eat them for breakfast. So I passed my exams by 90 points in average out of 100, and so with IELTS I decided to take the same strategy. I asked my friend for a huge book with IELTS variants and started working. It was a very decent book from Cambridge with certification from IELTS, of course fully in English and with detailed instructions. So remember one unspoken truth. A person with perfect knowledge of English but who sees IELTS tests for the first time will never pass it better than a person with rather poor English but who has solved more than 20 variants of this test and each time analyzed and studied his mistakes in order to improve his results. In addition to solving variants, I watched 2 very cool channels on YouTube, and by the way, I want to express my sincere hatred for people who record IELTS or TOEFL preparation videos who speaks English for maybe half a year, but try to pretend that they are true native speakers. and just destroy your brain with their pronunciation. Сегодня мы поговорим о том, как сдать часть
speaking,
экзамена Ielts. Несколько крутых лайфхаков по подготовке к
listening,
I can't even do that durable lesson. The main rule of pronunciation of a healthy person: you want to combine two languages in one sentence. For example, insert an English word into your Russian speech. Do not change the manner of your speech. Speak with the same accent that you spoke. Don't pervert over the language and the ears of listeners. Because it's like when you want to perform a 50 Cent track and you abruptly change your skin color to black. I've talked to not native English people who have lived abroad for many years, and that is why I really like true native speakers have already forgotten some Russian words and therefore insert English instead. But even so, the speech is smooth, without jumps in the form of
speaking,
and
listening,
and what these pseudo-experts from YouTube make of themselves is not clear to me. Most often, they will advise you a whole library of the US Congress in order to pass B1 level in 6 months, although in fact you can fail half of all tests and get B2. From here, the most important rule for passing the exam is that all preparation materials are in English only. These guys spoke in poor English in simple language and give very cool tips on preparation and well disclosed exactly the structure of each part of the exam, told how to manage time correctly and so on. And naturally, listening to them, I also improved my English listening skills, which, by the way, is another reason why non-English authors are a pointless waste of time. And that's all you need. Do a lot of tests, each time analyzing and correcting your mistakes, and watch a couple of channels specifically about IELTS, so that professionals can guide you on the right way. And that's all. A little later we'll talk about the specifics of preparing for individual parts of the exam. And then, in addition to active preparation for IELTS, it is very important to introduce some passive preparation, to gain experience of activity in a different language environment, to increase the volume of words and topics with which you can interact and use them, including on the exam itself. In general, to develop the support base for confidence in your English and more effective preparation. For example, for me it was recording videos on YouTube, but many people here like to watch movies in English or listen to podcasts. In fact, also not the most mentally and physically easiest way to prepare, because you still somehow spend a lot of energy to understand all this content, and personally for me watching movies didn't work at all, because this process is strongly associated with relaxation and rest. And when you watch a movie, you want to watch the movie, not read the subtitles and pause for a break for the translator. Recording videos on YouTube is also hard, but still great topic. You can share your experience, develop in the media environment, pump up your communication skills, and at the same time learn English. And this method is also great for preparing for the speaking part, which is especially hard to prepare for long. In general, you need to find something of your own. The main thing here is that you don't need to destroy your ass learning English. And in general, give yourself time to rest. This is important. Next, I backed myself up with a deadline by paying for the exam, which will be in 3 months. This is also a very effective method. You don't want to, but in 3 months you have an exam, and you need to prepare somehow. At first, of course, I suffered bullshit, but every day time was pushing me more and more. And in about 1.5 months, I began active, systematic preparation. I also bought tickets to Montenegro because in Russia it's problematic with international exams now. And having analyzed my whole preparation process, only 6 fully solved variants and 15 watched videos for 1 month of active preparation, I managed to get a score of 6.0. 6.0 for reading and listening and 5.5 for speaking and writing. I wanted a 6.5, the minimum plan was 5.5, it was enough for me just to close B2, and in general I am satisfied with the result. As you understand, 6 solved variants and 15 videos in a month is nothing at all. I mean, of course I sweated, but I spent a lot of time on some outside activities, and even that was enough to get a score of 6.0. Now more about each of the parts.
listening,
You are given 3 audio recordings, you listen to them and answer the questions. There is even time to read the questions in advance, and don't lose it because it is very useful. It is perfectly possible to prepare on your own to this part. The only problem can arise with the third audio, because very often there is no context in the questions, which often helps you to find the correct answers. There is often the third audio task is some kind of picture to which you need to add captions or something like that. I had a map of the area where the charity race was held, and it was a real pain because on the recording the guys were using words like behind that, near that, just before that, and I'm the kind of person who, if you ask me how to get to a store that I always go to myself, I can't explain the way correctly. Here in English plus audio recording some crazy map where the number of answers is more than the number of answer options. In general, the fate of this task I gave into the hands of random. Otherwise, there is enough time to think and answer with the head. Listening one of the easiest parts of Ielts, where you can easily farm points and for which you can easily prepare just making more and more tests. I watched some video where a girl said that in this part can be up to 200 different sessions of English, each of which of course must be learned. What a trash, there will not be an accent scarier than the accent with which she said
reading,
yeah, about reading. It may seem like this part should be the easiest, but it is not. Since this is the only part of the exam where you have complete knowledge of the information you need to answer from the beginning to the end of the time, the organizers can go wild with the presentation of this information, the complexity of word constructions and the sentences themselves. If you get a topic with which you have never worked, and given the fact that the texts are 3, then most likely it will be so, and then you're an ass. Well, so happened to me that the third text was the most difficult out of the 3. And reading is the part of Ielts where you most lack time. Yes, you have in front of your eyes everything for the right solutions all the time, so you will catastrophically not enough of this time, relative to the size of the task, of course. It is very easy to prepare alone, but you need to work through a lot of text on all sorts of topics within your preparation and try to learn to understand the meaning of each sentence in it. Again, it is very useful to read the questions before reading the text themselves, but you do not need to spend a lot of time on it. For example, there are difficulties to understand what one task wants from you, so skip it. Maybe later it will become clear. Maybe by the method of exception you solve it, and maybe even forget about it. Do not need to sacrifice your time in favor of one unclear question. The third text almost completely answered at random, simply because I did not manage my time wisely regarding what I could and could not do. So master a wider range of topics and to learn to allocate your time. Further writing, the first part with the charts is the easiest, will not stop here too much. Develop a template answer, this is less than that, the average is such a value, in this point maximal, in this point minimal, adapt all of this to your chart and the task is ready. The main thing is to provide all possible information about your case. The texts themselves are always quite formulaic, you need to watch a couple of video tutorials, read typical answers, and you will quickly understand what they want from you. So let's talk more about writing the letter. The main thing here is to clearly and transparently disclose your position on the presented questions, backing it up with examples from your life. On my exam, I invented this example, collecting it from the basic ideas about what is good and what is bad, disclosing it on the situation where I just know a lot of words well, and described all this supposedly as my life experience. And also I want to say that I wrote directly into the answer form with no draft. It was brave, but if you do not rush and think ahead, you will do pretty well. The only funny thing is that instead of the adverb as, I wrote as. So I just laughed a little, crossed it out and did not bother. It is also important not to ignore the rules of spelling, punctuation and so on, but The main thing is still to convey your thought in the right way. You can also add, if the question allows, of course, that everything is not so unambiguous and simple. Someone likes life in the city, someone in the countryside. Such dual questions often raise, and there such thoughts will look very suitable and beautiful. Preparation. It is very hard to get good feedback here to correct your mistakes. You need someone who understands these letters. The most effective solution here is, of course, to find videos from those who are good at it, and most importantly, you need here just work on this typical IELTS writing style by reading typical letters on various topics. In a good book with tests, such answers will definitely be, and having read them in large numbers, it is very easy to develop a decent style of writing for a good score. As for me, I wrote a huge text taking up the whole answer sheet. And by the way, it is a double-sided A4 sheet in a cell. Basically, it should be enough and a little more. And your letters should not be much larger than the required minimum volume, because the larger it is, the higher the probability of mistakes. But due to the fact that I did not write a lot of letters to prepare, I could not express my thoughts briefly, and I just needed more text to do so. I finished the last sentence about 5 minutes before the end of the time, which means a well-prepared person will have definitely enough time for this part, but not super-prepared person will also have just enough time. The only thing to think about the draft, whether you will use it or not. Here it all depends on you. In my case it was contraindicated and I was able to predict the thought ahead quite well. But if you're going to rewrite your text later, definitely take care of being able to express a thought in a small volume. Otherwise, there will definitely not be enough time. So, speaking. Speaking is the hardest thing to prepare for alone. I watched some interviews on YouTube and it's a pretty good way to pump up your speaking skills. The most important thing here is not to get lost and to be able to get your point across in simple words when you're not enough of complex words you know. The examiner, according to the legend, is a native speaker. And really, during my speaking part, a special man who I will talk to joined the exam. I did not ask his passport or citizen card to make sure he is really from England, but he spoke very clear and understandable English and did it quite slowly, so it was easy to understand him. Don't worry about it. He asked pretty routine questions, but there were a few that were a little discouraging. Do you have keys? Where do you carry your keys? And how often do you lose them? And when was the last time you lost your keys? That is, there are also such talking about hi. That is why be vigilant. Basically, it was quite easy to answer such questions, but you need to be prepared to adapt from ordinary conversations like where do you study to talking about keys. It is very useful to know some topic more deeply, and if something happens, you can direct the dialogue according to your own way. And this is even necessary to do because the examiner begins to ask you questions based on what you answer to him. And this is very convenient when that topic you are good at. In general, the questions except keys are pretty normal. With transparent answers, you just need to keep calm and show a high level of communication skills. My speaking part was the last in that day. That is, you have 2 hours and 40 minutes, actually longer for the first 3 parts, which you write together with the whole group, and then come to the individual time to talk to a native speaker in speaking part. So I came a little bit in advance. There were 2 girls who checked the documents. I saw that they were doing something with the camera. I went over and told them how to turn on the autofocus. We laughed at how timely I showed them that, because I was the last of the passers and they took all the previous photos of documents and their owners with manual, probably not successful focusing. Anyway, we talked a bit and of course it was all in English, and it really boosted my confidence because I went into the interview room thinking that I could explain how to turn on the damn autofocus on the camera, so the questions about keys would not break me. And yeah, the funny thing, in all the videos I watched on YouTube after the speaking part, the examiner gave feedback telling where the participant made a mistake, how to speak correctly, and how not to. So my exam ends, the interview tells me this is the end, and I sit in front of him waiting for him to give me a grade and tell me how well I did. I sit looking at him and he says, that's all. I'm still waiting, and now he says straight, you can go. It turned out funny. I hope that for this I did not take off points. By the way, it was an unreal quest to find Ielts location, because they climbed into such a cave that only for a successful attempt to find it they should rate you C2. So if you have the opportunity to come the day before to find the place of your exam, be sure to do it. And the next 3 weeks waiting for the results were the most painful in the whole way to IELTS certificate. I predicted worse results for myself than nightmares with a score of 5, but I'm still completely satisfied with my 6.0. And a little advice: before the exam, go to the toilet, because as soon as you enter the classroom you will not be allowed to go out of there. You can do it during reading and writing, but believe me, you will have neither the desire nor the time, and take a bottle of water to the exam. On the exam you can write with both a pencil and a pen. For a pencil, take a sharpener, and examiners will also have spare pencils and pens. Take with you the document on which you registered for the exam, and be ready that it and you will be photographed, after which you will go to the room of the exam. Naturally, you will be banned for cheating, but I can't imagine how a phone can help you there. You will have time to frantically translate 2 words in the toilet, but in the context of the task and the test as a whole, this will bring you a maximum of 1 point out of 40 in some part. And of course, be sure that if you passed IELTS well, it does not mean at all that now you will be able to survive in an English-speaking environment with no problems. Because just like to do well in IELTS, you need to practice passing IELTS, so in order to speak English well, you need to practice speaking English. But now you will already have a paper for university or work abroad, and there you will definitely learn how to do it. It was Stepan Gromov, thank you all for the watching, and something got dark in my room. So good luck for you in passing IELTS and in life, and see you, bye!